Chapter 17. The Game. It was just beginning to drizzle when Edward turned onto my street. Up until that moment, I'd had no doubt that he'd be staying with me while I spent a few interim hours in the real world. And then I saw the black car, a weathered Ford, parked in Charlie's driveway, and heard Edward mutter something unintelligible in a low, harsh voice. Leaning away from the rain under the shallow front porch, Jacob Black stood behind his father's wheelchair. Billy's face was as impassive as stone as Edward parked my truck against the curb. Jacob stared down, his expression mortified. Edward's low voice was furious. "This is crossing the line." He came to warn Charlie, I guessed, more horrified than angry. Edward just nodded, answering Billy's gaze through the rain with narrowed eyes. I felt weak with relief that Charlie wasn't home yet. "Let me deal with this," I suggested. To my surprise, he agreed. "That's probably best. Be careful though. The child has no idea." I bridled a little at the word child. Jacob is not that much younger than I am, I reminded him. He looked at me then, his anger abruptly fading. "Oh, I know," he assured me with a grin. I sighed and put my hand on the door handle. "Get them inside," he instructed, "so I can leave. I'll be back around dusk." "Do you want my truck?" I offered. He rolled his eyes. "I could walk home faster than this truck moves." "You don't have to leave," I said wistfully. "Actually, I do. After you get rid of them." He threw a dark glance in Black's direction. "You still have to prepare Charlie to meet your new boyfriend." He grinned widely, showing all of his teeth. I groaned. "Thanks a lot." He smiled the crooked smile that I loved. "I'll be back soon," he promised. His eyes flickered back to the porch, and then he leaned in swiftly to kiss me under the edge of my jaw. My heart lurched frantically, and I too glanced toward the porch. Charlie's face was no longer impassive.
Hi.
"Hi, guys." I could feel his eyes on my back as I half ran through the light sprinkle toward the porch. "Hi, Billy. Hi, Jacob." I greeted them as cheerfully as I could manage. "Charlie's gone for the day. I hope you haven't been waiting long." I haven't picked voices for any of these people. "Not long," Billy said in a subdued tone. His black eyes were piercing. "I just wanted to bring this up." He handed a brown paper sack resting in his lap. "Thanks," I said, though I had no idea what it could be. "Why don't you come in for a minute to dry off?" I pretended to be oblivious to his intense scrutiny as I unlocked the door and waved them in ahead of me. "Here, let me take that," I offered, turning to shut the door. I allowed myself one last glance at Edward. He was waiting, perfectly still, his eyes solemn. "You'll want to put it in the fridge," Billy noted as he handed me the package. "It's some of Harry Clearwater's homemade fish fry. Charlie's favorite." "Thanks," I repeated, but with feeling this time. "Jake," he said, still appraising me, "why don't you go get that new picture of Rebecca out of the car?" Jacob slouched back out into the rain. Billy and I faced each other in silence. After a few seconds, the quiet started to feel awkward, so I turned and headed to the kitchen. I could hear his wet wheels squeak against the linoleum as he followed. His deeply lined face was unreadable. "Charlie won't be back for a long time." My voice was almost rude. He nodded in agreement, but said nothing. "Thanks again for the fish fry," I hinted. He continued nodding. He seemed to sense that I had given up on small talk. "Bella," he said, and then hesitated. I waited. "Bella," he said again. "Charlie is one of my best friends." "Yes." "I noticed you've been spending time with one of the Cullens." "Yes," I repeated curtly. His eyes narrowed. "Maybe it's none of my business, but I don't think that is such a good idea." "You're right," I agreed. "It is none of your business." That's some sassy teenager.
You're sassing an elder.
He raised his graying eyebrows at my tone. "You probably don't know this, but the Cullen family has an unpleasant reputation on the reservation." "Actually, I did know that," I informed him in a hard voice. This surprised him. "But that reputation couldn't be deserved, could it? Because the Cullens never set foot on the reservation, do they?" "That's true," he acceded, his eyes guarded. "You seem well informed about the Cullens. More informed than I expected." I stared him down. "Maybe even better informed than you are." As he considered that. I know. "Maybe," he allowed, but his eyes were shrewd. "Is Charlie as well informed?" "Charlie likes the Cullens a lot," I hedged. He clearly understood my evasion. His expression was unhappy, but unsurprised. "It's not my business," he said, "but it may be Charlie's. Though it would be my business, again, whether or not I think it's Charlie's business, right?" "Yes," he finally surrendered. "I guess that's your business too." I sighed with relief. "Thanks, Billy." "Just think about what you're doing, Bella," he urged. "Okay," I agreed quickly. What I meant to say was, don't do what you're doing. Just then the front door banged loudly and I jumped at the sound. "There's no picture anywhere in that car." Jacob's complaining voice reached us before he did. Well, yeah, I'm gonna go with it. You know what? The shoulders of his shirt were stained with the rain, his hair dripping. Billy grunted, suddenly detached, spinning his chair around to face his son. I guess I left it at home. Jacob rolled his eyes dramatically. Great! Well, Bella, tell Charlie. Billy paused before continuing. That we stopped by, I mean. I will, I muttered. Jacob was surprised. Are we leaving already? Charlie's gonna be out late, Billy explained as he rolled himself past Jacob. Oh, Jacob looked disappointed. Well, I guess I'll see you later then, Bella. I stood in the hallway for a minute, listening to the sound of their car as it backed out and drove away. I stayed where I was, waiting for the irritation and anxiety to subside. When the tension eventually faded a bit, I headed upstairs to change out of my dressy clothes. I gave up quickly on choosing an outfit, throwing on an old flannel shirt and jeans, knowing I would be in my raincoat all night anyway. The phone rang and I sprinted downstairs to get it. Hello? I asked breathlessly. Bella, it's me, Jessica, Jessica said. Oh, hey, Jess. I scrambled for a moment to come back down to reality. How was the dance? It was so much fun, Jessica gushed. Needing no more invitation than that, she launched into a minute-by-minute account of the previous night. Jessica, Mike, the dance, the school, they all seemed strangely irrelevant at the moment. My eyes kept flashing to the window, trying to judge the degree of light behind the heavy clouds. Did you hear what I said, Bella? Jess asked, irritated. I'm sorry, what? I said Mike kissed me. Can you believe it? Guys, they made it to the first kiss stage. She was so sure. It feels like it was 3 weeks ago, but it was probably 2 days ago. That's wonderful, Jess, I said.
And just how Bella talks. Like, who said, like, if I said, oh my gosh, so-and-so and I kissed last night, would you guys be like, that's wonderful? Some of the things she says, I'm like, what are you?
Straight up Mrs. Havisham right now.
Like, it's just, because at least Edward was, like, born in a different time. But she's an actual teenager.
Did you ever hear anything more from Edward Cullen? The front door slammed and I could hear Charlie banging around under the stairs, putting his tackle away. I hesitated, not sure what my story was anymore. Hi there, kiddo. Jess heard his voice. Oh, your dad's there. Never mind, we'll talk tomorrow. See you in Trigg. So I hung up the phone. Hey, Dad, I said. He was scrubbing his hands in the sink. Billy dropped off some of Harry Clearwater's fish fry this afternoon. He did? Charlie's eyes lit up. That's my favorite. It didn't take long till we were sitting at the table, eating in silence. Charlie was enjoying his food. I was struggling to think of a way to broach the subject. What did you do with yourself today? Well, this afternoon I just hung around the house. I tried to keep my voice upbeat, but my stomach was hollow. And this morning I was over at the Cullens. Dr. Cullen's place? He asked in astonishment. Yeah. What were you doing there? He hadn't picked his fork back up. Well, I sort of have a date with Edward Cullen tonight. He wanted to introduce me to his parents. Dad, are you all right? You're going out with Edward Cullen? He thundered. He's too old for you, he ranted. We're both juniors, I corrected, though he was more right than he dreamed. Wait, he paused. Which one is Edwin? Edward is the youngest, the one with the reddish-brown hair. The beautiful one, the godlike one. Oh, well, he struggled. Better, I guess. I don't like the look of that big one. I'm sure he's a nice boy and all, but he looks too mature for you. Is this Edwin your boyfriend? It's Edward, Dad. Sort of, I guess. You said last night that you weren't interested in any of the boys in town. Well, Edward doesn't live in town, Dad. When is he coming over? He'll be here in a few minutes. Where is he taking you? I hope you're getting the Spanish Inquisition out of your system now. We're going to play baseball with his family. His face puckered, and then he finally chuckled. You're playing baseball? Well, I'll probably watch most of the time. You must really like this guy. I sighed and rolled my eyes for his benefit. The doorbell rang and Charlie stalked off to answer it. I hadn't realized how hard it was pouring outside. Edward stood in the halo of the porch light looking like a male model in an advertisement for raincoats. Come on in, Edward. I breathed a sigh of relief when Charlie got his name right. Thanks, Chief Swan, Edward said in a respectful voice. Go ahead and call me Charlie. Have a seat there, Edward. Edward sat down fluidly in the only chair, forcing me to sit next to Chief Swan on the sofa. I quickly shot him a dirty look. He winked behind Charlie's back. I walked back to the hall and pulled on my jacket. They followed. Not too late, Belle. Don't worry, Charlie. I'll have her home early, Edward promised. I stalked out. They both laughed, and Edward followed me. I stopped dead on the porch. There, behind my truck, was a monster Jeep. Its tires were higher than my waist. Charlie let out a low whistle. I can't do a low whistle. I'll take it. Wear your seatbelts. As he went around to the driver's side, at a normal, human pace, I tried to put on my seatbelt. but there were too many buckles. I tried to find the right places for all the buckles to fit, but it wasn't going too quickly. He sighed again and reached over to help me. I was glad that the rain was too heavy to see Charlie clearly on the porch. That meant he couldn't see how Edward's hands lingered on my neck, brushed along my collarbones. I gave up trying to help him and focused on not hyperventilating. Edward turned the key and the engine roared to life. We pulled away from the house. This book just jumps from 0 to 100 like that.
Yes, I mean, just from them holding hands to discussing marriage and meeting the parents.
They kissed for the first time, right? It took half the book to get to that point. And then
hold hands. Never mind kissing, holding hands.
I don't know how he found his way in the gloom and downpour, but he somehow found a side road that was less of a road and more of a mountain path. For a long while, conversation was impossible because I was bouncing up and down in the seat like a jackhammer.
That makes me think, you know when people ride like a very non-smooth back horse at a trot and they're like...
And then we came to the end of the road. The trees formed green walls on the 3 sides of the Jeep. On 3 sides of the Jeep. It has 4 sides. Sorry, Bella. We have to go on foot from here. You know what? I'll just wait here. He was around to my side of the car in a blur. He started unbuckling me. Now, he breathed, and just his smell disturbed my thought processes. What exactly were you worrying about? Well, hitting a tree, I gulped, and dying, and then getting sick. Dying and then getting sick. These are very Hermione kind of like thought processes.
Or worse, expelled.
Or worse. I could die, or worse, throw up. Don't really think I would hit a tree, do you? No, but I might. There was no confidence in my voice. He smelled an easy victory. He kissed slowly down my cheeks. Now let's get out of here before I do something really stupid. He threw me across his back as he had before, and I could see the extra effort it took for him to be as gentle as he was. I wasn't quite sure we had stopped until he reached back and touched my hair. It's over, Bella. I stiffly unlocked my stranglehold on his body and slipped to the ground, landing on my backside, evidently not sure whether he was still too mad to find me funny. I really don't like that he's mad at her.
Yeah.
I don't like that. That's not healthy. And we were there, on the edge of an enormous open field in the lap of the Olympic peaks. I could see the others all there. Alice had left her position and was running, or dancing, towards us. She hurtled to a fluid stop at our feet. It's time, she announced. You ready for some ball? Edward asked, his eyes eager. I tried to sound appropriately enthusiastic. Go team! He snickered and after mussing my hair, bounded off after the other 2. The grace and power took my breath away. Shall we go down? Esme asked in her soft, melodic voice, and I realized I was staring open-mouthed after him. I quickly reassembled my expression and nodded. She matched her stride to mine without seeming impatient at the pace. You don't play with them? I asked shyly. No, I prefer to referee. I like keeping them honest, she explained. Do they like to cheat then? Oh yes, you should hear the arguments they get into. Actually, I hope you don't. You would think they were raised by a pack of wolves. Another peal of thunder began. Esme stopped then. Apparently we'd reached the edge of the field. It looked as if they had formed teams. Edward was far out in the left field. Carlisle stood between. The thunder rumbled on, but we stayed dry, as Alice had predicted. Carlisle was up to bat, Edward catching, when Alice suddenly gasped. My eyes were on Edward, as usual, and I saw his head snap up to look at her. Their eyes met, and something flowed between them in an instant. He was at my side before the others could ask Alice what was wrong. Alice? Esme's voice was tense. I didn't see. I couldn't tell, she whispered. What is it, Alice? Carlisle asked with the calm voice of authority. They were traveling much quicker than I thought. I can see I had the perspective wrong before, she murmured. Jasper leaned over her, his posture protective. What changed? He asked. They heard us playing, and it changed their path, she said, contrite, as if she felt responsible for whatever had frightened her. 7 pairs of quick eyes flashed in my face and away. How soon? Carlisle said, turning toward Edward. A look of intense concentration crossed his face. Less than 5 minutes. They're running. They want to play, he scowled. How many? Emmett asked Alice. 3, she answered tersely. 3? Let 'em come. The steel hands of muscle flexed along his massive arms. Carlisle deliberated. Let's just continue the game, Carlisle finally decided. His voice was cool and level. Alice said they were simply curious. All this was said in a flurry of words that lasted only a few seconds. I had listened carefully and caught most of it, though I couldn't hear what Esme now asked Edward with a silent vibration of her lips. You catch, Esme, he said. I'll call it now. That was supposed to be Edward instead of Carlisle. Never mind. The others returned to the field, warily sweeping the dark forest with their sharp eyes. I stated the obvious. The others are coming now? Yes, stay very still, keep quiet, and don't move from my side. Please. He pulled my long hair forward around my face. That won't help, Alice said softly. I could smell her from across the field. I know. A hint of frustration colored his tone. Carlisle stood at the plate and the others joined the game half-heartedly. The seconds ticked by, the game progressed with apathy now. No one dared hit harder than a bunt, and Emmett, Rosalie, and Jasper hovered in the infield. Edward paid no attention to the game at all, eyes and mind ranging the forest. I heard his breath stop and his eyes zeroed in on the right field. Carlisle, Emmett, and the others turned in the same direction, hearing sounds of passage much too faint for my ears. That's the end of the chapter.
Okay, wait, I had a question. Because Bella was like, oh, the others are coming. When did he ever mention the other vampires?
I think she's not as dumb as we think she is.
They mentioned them earlier. They first got to the house because Edward was reading Carlisle's mind.
Oh, Allison's paying attention. Okay, well, regardless, Bella should just die.
Alice, like, huh,
So
like, just
here
in
we go,
her
out of the dance moves. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.